Being a leader is stressful, and that's why a smile always helps, because some situations are already stressful, no?
How long does it take to actually get something like that done and signed? How many conversations, how many meetings, how many visits?
That's not an easy thing to do, and I would say it's more of an art and intuition sometimes than just a skill set.
Maybe just from your perspective, if you were just finishing university and starting up in this industry, or wanting to join a games industry, or perhaps start your own gaming studio, what would your advice be?
My recommendation would be that they need to specialize and they need to get experience. And one way to do that is by creating their own studios with their friends and start creating games.
At what stage do publishers typically sign a deal or invest in companies like that? Different going to a football game here? As in the experience, or is it mostly about the game, or do they actually
No, I think
have like a
football
show
continues
as well?
to be the same, no? Very focused on the football, on the sport, while I think there is some learning to do that the experience could go beyond, no?
Sure.
And I think that in Barcelona, we did some attempts in the past to introduce some, I don't know, maybe someone that comes and sing in the half part or something like this. But still, we can do much better maybe to convert football into a full entertainment experience, let's say.
Sure.
That's in fact what Piqué is trying to do with the Kings League, no?
What's the Kings League?
Piqué is a football player from Barcelona, and when he retired, he just started a new football league with different rules. The field is much smaller. There are cards in the middle of the match that change the course of the match, and maybe you have one card and you open it and it gives you a penalty for free. Or
So it's like gamified football.
It's gamified football. It's much smaller. The rules are that also the time is shorter. You cannot waste any type of time. So it's trying to introduce a more basketball concept into the football, and gamified, and also with YouTubers and streamers that are the leads of each of the teams. No,
I like it.
So it looks like fun. Just look for the Kings League, and now they have the Queens League, and maybe one day you can look at YouTube and watch some match how they do it.
And it's still 11 against 11?
I think it's less because the field is much smaller.
Sure.
Maybe it's 5 or 7. I don't know.
I like these new initiatives that people bring to your traditional sports. Like I think last year they brought 3-on-3 basketball to the Olympics.
Like
which
the
before
street
that,
basketball, no?
exactly. Which before that it wasn't necessarily considered. Well, it was considered a sport, but it wasn't considered like a major sport, right? So something you would go and watch playing on the street with your friends, whatever. But yeah, now it's actually an Olympic sport, and people compete to enter. Yeah, pretty cool. You from Barcelona originally?
Yeah, I'm originally from Barcelona. In fact, I'm originally from Sant Cugat, no? But I did my university engineering degree here in Barcelona. I've been working here most of the years, even if I also work for a few years abroad. I spent 1 year in Canada, another year in Singapore, another year in Belgium. So overall, I have also traveled a little bit, but then settled down here and stay here.
It's not a bad place to settle down.
Well, you would need to compare, no, with other places.
You have to. I agree. You need to travel to experience different cultures, places, to understand what sort of works best.
But definitely, I think Barcelona has some strengths, and I enjoy living here, and the quality of life is good.
I think so. I like the weather. I like the people. I like how international the city is, how welcoming it is. I mean, I'm planning on settling here as well.
Okay, that's amazing.
I just need to learn the language a little bit better. But it's really my own fault. I feel like I need to just put some more time into it.
Yeah, maybe Duolingo can help you a little bit with
I
that.
do that. I do Duolingo.
And it helps?
It does. It
Okay.
does. It helps every day. So certainly more confident now than I was when I first arrived here.
It's been 3 years.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah. But Yes, and I need to do more of it. So let's talk about video games.
Sure.
Your journey and how it started in video games. So I know from your experience that you worked at Hewlett-Packard in the beginning as an engineer.
Yeah.
You worked as a consultant. You tried different industries, and then at some point, you ended up at Socialpoint, right? So what was the journey like towards getting to Socialpoint, and how did you end up there?
Yes, well, I ended up at video games by luck.
Mm-hmm.
It was not planned, and it was not part of my initial thought, no? As you said, I studied engineering, and I started, my first jobs were much more related with that, no? But well, in fact, when I was a teenager, I remember going with my friends to the local arcade place, no, to play video games, to have fun with Street Fighter, with Sega Rally, and we were spending some very good time there, no? And that's how somehow I initiated on video games, no? It was part of entertainment and fun. Then at home with my first PC, I was enjoying also a lot a game called Penguin Adventures. And it's like a runner, something like this, and super fun as well. So those were like my first steps, my first contact. But it's not until 2016 that Socialpoint was not anymore a startup, and rather a scale-up company that had grown quite significantly in the few years before.
Sure.
And it needed some support on improving the processes, the organization, also the tools, and that's how I started there. No, I had some experience as a consultant in this kind of supporting companies on leveling up, and also I had a previous experience in digital startups and in the e-commerce, which was booming at that moment here. So I thought it would be very fun. And also mobile was growing fast, so it was a way for me to get exposed to the mobile business economy. And that's how I started at Socialpoint.
Was it scary to jump into the industry, or was it just new and exciting and different?
It was very exciting because, as you can imagine, video games is quite different from other industries, especially just the product part is very different, and the business also operates a little bit different, no? So for me, it was brand new. It's true that as a consultant, I was used to work on different industries, on different clients, so I was not scared. But and at the same time, I also was used to work in startups and companies that were growing fast. But when I entered to Socialpoint, I realized it was a different beast, and it was something that I had not experienced before.
When you mentioned it was a scale-up, how do you differentiate from startup to scale-up? Is it just the number of people that they had at that time, or?
Well, it's a way to say that it was not anymore a startup, no? I think in terms of business, it was profitable. The team was over 200 people.
Right.
So even if the founders were still there and they were putting a lot of speed into the company, the whole organization was not anymore a small startup of a small group of people. And therefore, the situation was more of a scale-up rather than
It's like one of those worldwide known success stories, right, to come out of Barcelona, Socialpoint. I mean, it's a very well-known name, and I mean, it's done so well.
Yeah, everything started in 2008 when the founders finished the university degree, and they decided to start a business on the Facebook, which was starting at that moment with video games, no? And in fact, I think Socialpoint was one of the biggest companies in video games worldwide in terms of Facebook, number of users playing a game, no? Then in 2012-13, the mobile shifted happened, and Socialpoint was able to shift their big titles, especially Dragon City, into mobile. But maybe the level of success was not at the same level as what the company achieved in the Facebook, even if it was very, very successful also. So Barcelona and Socialpoint, I think that they have a common history of two local friends starting a company here and then the company growing very significantly, making a hit in the video games industry and being acquired by then one of the big, let's say, big companies in the industry like Take.
And so when you joined back in 2016, was there already an ambition to grow more, to grow higher, and to eventually sort of get acquired by somebody? Was that always an ambition of the company, or did that sort of come about at some point while you were there?
I think the founders always had the ambition to keep growing. And I think they were bold. And the proof of that is that they were investing significant amount of the team and therefore of the investment into new games. So they were not just only thinking about cash cowing the current hits, but rather trying to make something even bigger, no? And always the ambition was to make games from Barcelona to the world and to continue growing the company. It's true that when I joined the company 2016 and then 17, 18, the industry was maturing much faster and trying to launch a game in a new category was more and more difficult, no? So I think that the ambition was there, but then making it happen was super.
Socialpoint is one of those first studios that it's kind of like a startup that was offering a lot of really good benefits and opportunity and sort of acquiring talent from all over the world and essentially growing really fast. And then it seems like after Socialpoint, there were more and more studios started to open up in that ecosystem within Barcelona as well. How was witnessing that sort of affected maybe, you personally, company as well?
I think Barcelona has the strength of a good local talent, nurtured by a good network of universities and schools, but also the capacity to attract a lot of external talent, especially from other European capitals, due to the quality of life and good weather, no? In video games, you need a multidisciplinary team that needs to account from artists to developers to analysts to all sort kind of profiles, no? And founding all of them locally, it's difficult. And even if you are requesting somebody that has experience and that has a lot of know-how, and it's even more difficult, no? So for Socialpoint, it was a must to attract external talent. And it was one of the main focus for the company to get access to that talent, both locally and internationally. At some point, this also helped to attract more talent, no? Because eventually talent attracts talent. And by Socialpoint making this effort, some other companies start looking at Barcelona as a place where video games could be operated and created as well, no? So that's why when the acquisition happened, I think it put also Barcelona in the map.
For sure.
And it had more visibility. And then some studios that were already operating here, like King was already here, Gameloft, Ubisoft, and then many more other started to come, no?
Yeah, because now it's become sort of like a hub, right? So you can compare it to, I don't know, likes of Stockholm or Montreal or London. There's a lot of studios here, and it's fun to see.
Yeah, approximately 60% of the top gaming companies have some kind of presence in the region, in Barcelona and in Catalonia. So that's quite big. In terms of Spain, Barcelona accounts for 50% of the business of the overall country, and in terms of talent as well. So Barcelona has become like one of the main hubs in Europe. And that it's also because as part of the ecosystem, there have been growing the ecosystem here, no? To go beyond those big companies, you also need to look into the schools, the universities, the incubators, accelerators, many indie studios. and then some local and private and public institutions that help the industry to grow. And so there has been a plan to improve and foster the ecosystem to make that happen.
Makes sense. When you were working at Socialpoint, just going back to that, and you had to grow the company, and you were working as a COO there, right?
Yes, I did not
lead.
start as a COO initially.
Mhm.
I started as, let's say, operations manager. But when the founders left the company, I was, let's say, promoted to COO.
What were the biggest challenges that you faced in that role during your time?
Well, as you can imagine, during the 8 years that I was there, the company moved or transitioned into several stages, as we were speaking before, no? From startup, then Scaleup, then an acquired company, then to integrate into a large company like Take-Two, and finally into a big corporate, no? Where it's the whole Take-Two and Zynga group, no? So each of those phases had different challenges, and it was fun to deal with them, no? Then also I was exposed to many different roles and many different situations, which in fact helped me a lot to grow and to understand better the industry, no? But I would say that eventually COVID was a moment that it was one of those challenges that I remember very, very well, no? Because from one day to the other, we needed to transition from a full-time office to full-time remote, no? And many of our processes, and especially communication routines, no, were changed. And even if we had no problem to operate the company from the first day, it's true that our communication routines and the way we were making decisions somehow was changing. And not only that, we also needed to take care of people, because there was like, let's say, a worldwide crisis happening at that moment, no? So for us, taking care of the people was also one of our biggest priorities during that time. Looking back, I think we are very proud of the work we did. I think our staff also recognized it for us for that, and I think that was a real challenge, but also I think it was an opportunity for us to grow as professionals and as persons as well. Then thinking about some other challenges, as you can imagine, when Socialpoint was acquired, more or less in early 2017, by a large company like Take-Two that had thousands of employees, no? And we were like a company of, let's say, 300 people, no? This is a massive challenge as well, no? Not only because we had to integrate some processes and some reportings, but also because the way of operating the business, the way of managing expectations, to build trust with the new company, you know, to explain the plans and convince them on also the challenges that we were having in the industry, you know. So I think that was definitely a challenge, because it was not anymore full autonomy, which we hold a lot of autonomy, but rather we also needed to convince our stakeholders and to create that trust with them. And then imagine that after a few years, you need to repeat the same process with Zynga. Once Take-Two acquired Zynga, we were told to integrate with Zynga, no? So it was like, okay, now I need to integrate with another big company, no?
Sure.
And in this case, it was even funnier, because Zynga was trying to integrate with Take-Two while we were trying to integrate with Zynga, no? So it was like trying to sync 3 moving vehicles at the same time, no? And I think that was also a big challenge. But I would say that having worked with the co-founders for a few years, and also with the leadership team of Socialpoint, was very helpful for me to learn and to get also inspiration on how to operate on each of those challenges, no? And to be honest, I was surrounded by an amazing team, no? So all the credit to the team. That is the ones that at the end make things happen and that are really taking the lead on execution. So for me at the end, that was what helped me to, let's say, face those challenges and succeed.
You're talking about everything with like a smile and a very calm manner. Was it always like this when you were there as well? Was it always, do you normally like take on challenges like this with a smile and calmness? Because like it's quite admirable to be able to do that. Or do you ever find yourself being like very stressed out in situations like this?
I think smiling at challenges is always better because if you would have no challenges, maybe it would be a little bit boring, no? So I think your attitude to challenges also makes an impact on and helps people also to move forward. So yes, I think we should face challenges with a big smile, try to do our best, try to react and learn fast, but take them with a smile because that's part of the beauty of challenges. And what I see my role is as a problem solver most of the times, no? Facilitator, somebody that helps the teams to take and make decisions. So eventually, I think we need to influence people, and doing that with a smile, it's always easier and better.
Absolutely. And you need to try and put yourself in those uncomfortable situations. And once you're there, try and greet it with a smile, as you say. Makes you grow as a person. Talking about those acquisitions as well. So you went through, when you were there, the company went through 2 acquisitions. Obviously, whatever people read in the paper is that, Socialpoint got acquired by Take-Two by X amount of million, and then Zynga acquired Socialpoint for X amount of million. They only see whatever is written on the surface, but I don't see the amount of work that goes past that and the amount of time it takes to, I guess, secure those deals. How long does it take to actually get something like that done and signed? And, how many conversations, how many meetings, how many visits?
Well, maybe a little bit of context here. Socialpoint was acquired by Take-Two in 2017. And I was not massively involved in that deal. I just arrived to the company a year before. There was a COO at that moment who I was reporting to and was doing a magnificent job there. And he, together with the founders, was leading that acquisition. So there is not much that I can comment on that. Then, in fact, it was not Zynga acquiring Socialpoint, but Take-Two acquiring Zynga.
Right.
And because the Socialpoint was already part of Take-Two, and Take-Two wanted to consolidate all the mobile business under Zynga, that's how we were somehow integrated into Zynga. No? I think that the Zynga acquisition, because happened from the Take-Two side, I was neither too much involved because it was a much, let's say, top to bottom decision. No, I think that both Strauss and in this case, Frank from Zynga had some conversations and they felt it was the right move for both companies, no? That said, while we were already part of Take-Two, Take-Two requested us to look for other mobile companies. And we started to open a team of M&A inside Socialpoint to scout the market and to look for amazing and talented gaming teams. And that's how somehow we ended up acquiring through Take-Two 2 companies. One is Playdots, which they have a very successful and amazing game called Two Dots.
Okay.
And then also acquired Nordeus, which is a company from Serbia that they have a super incredible game called Top 11.
They have this game with Jose Mourinho, no? Is that them?
With?
The football game
yes.
with Jose Mourinho?
He is sponsoring that game. So those 2 acquisitions that were performed by Take-Two I think that Socialpoint had some kind of involvement on them in analyzing those companies, identifying those companies,
Right.
and eventually with PlayDots, we had quite a good integration between both companies after the acquisition. So we were looking for synergies that we could eventually help both companies to level up.
Right. And you mentioned one of the biggest challenges you faced was moving the company to work remotely during COVID, right?
Yeah.
How did you go about that? Anything you would do differently now? And do the guys still work remotely at Socialpoint? Do they work from the studio now? Well, I don't know if you know.
I'm not sure what's the status now. It's been more than a year that I'm not there. But at that moment, the Spanish government decided that everybody should work remote, that it was not pure essential like, let's say, people in the hospitals or things like that. So we moved to full remote. And then slowly, while the government was releasing some, let's say, they were allowing people to go out and to go back to offices, we started to implement a hybrid mode. Because creating games, it's a creative industry, and you cannot rely on only one person to create an amazing game. You rather need a team to complement each other and to create fun. So we were considering at that moment that having the team to interact together at least a few days a week would be very helpful for them, and also to continue building the culture of a company, So that's how we transition. And nowadays, I think it should be the same, Like if you are creating a new game, I would encourage teams to gather together to complement each other and to create fun by integrating ideas from different people, So at that moment, we had to do it, but now I still consider that working together is important. Also, things that I would do different. That's a good one. I think we were paying a lot of attention to people, and I think that I would repeat that. Over-communicating was also something that we tried, that we were incentivizing, because when you meet at the office, it's easier to have some informal communication, while if you work full remote at home, this kind of informal conversation does not happen. So trying to replace that by over-communication is good. I think we had some learnings from that moment. That if you take care of your team will take care of your company, and that's something that keeps valuable for me.
When you say over-communication, what do you mean by that?
I think that sometimes we try to be very efficient with our time, trying to reduce the amount of meetings, which, we spend a lot of time on meetings, But when you are transitioning from one way of operating to another one, I think it's better to over-communicate, try to communicate same stuff or similar stuff by the Slack, by meetings, by different channels. So to make sure that everybody's aware, that everything is clear, because setting expectations is one of the most important things we need to do, so that each individual then knows how to best contribute into that, So in terms of over-communication, was just trying to reach as many channels as possible to guarantee that everybody was aware of what we were trying to do, to achieve, or to execute.
Yeah. Communication is super important. I think talking to a few people on this podcast as well, I think this is something that I mentioned. So having this effective communication within the studio where people are able to kind of speak the same language, especially if you work remotely, that's like super important. Do you, maybe the way the current studio operates that you work for, Sandsoft, or the way Socialpoint operated, what kind of strategies or systems have you put in place in order to for teams to be able to communicate effectively? And also, is the communication both in Socialpoint and Sandsoft, is it more centralized or decentralized? And what I mean by that is that, do you leave it up to producers and teams to find their own ways to, build that sort of internal language that they're able to speak to and understand? Or is it more about how the whole company and studio operates and works?
I would say it's more about the teams find their way to operate at the team level, and what's the best channel, what's the best let's say cadence of communication, how is more effective for them, because it's not the same, let's say, finance team than as a team that is creating a new game than a team that is operating a live game. No, so I think that there are different needs and circumstances on each of those cases.
Sure.
So having some kind of flexibility at the team level is important. At the same time, at company level, you still need to make sure that the key messages and the guidance are arriving to the teams, no? And therefore, having some kind of, let's say, structured or centralized communication, I would say it's helpful, because it keeps the same information for everybody, and you avoid a little bit of this kind of chatty chat, no, or that sometimes happens on companies, no. So that's how I would combine those two.
Makes sense. The company that you work for now, Sandsoft, can you tell me a bit more about that? What are you guys known for? I know that you are a publishing company. That's kind of what I've been hearing most. But do you work on your own games as well? Are you mostly focused on publishing?
Yeah.
More about that.
Well, talking about Sandsoft is great because, look, I'm enjoying a lot working at Sandsoft. It's let's say, it's a games company with roots in Saudi Arabia, and that's already something very special about the company. And it's a publisher. It's also a developer, and it's also an investor, no? So the focus and the aim is to operate on those three pillars. As a publisher, we like to partner with third-party developers to publish their games, and we are looking for games currently that we can help companies to publish in a global way, not only in MENA, no? So in terms of our own development, we have two studios, one in Barcelona and one in Riyadh, that they have teams working on new games. We can create our own games and our own IPs so that eventually we can operate those games. And then as an investor, we look into the market for amazing teams and amazing games that eventually we could partner with and support from an investment point of view. So as Sandsoft, Sandsoft is a very cool environment, approximately 70 people now from more than 25 nationalities, offices in Barcelona, in Riyadh, in Helsinki, and in Shanghai. So very diverse pool of talent.
Very diverse.
My colleagues are mainly very senior and experienced professionals coming from consolidated gaming companies. So working with them is amazing, because the level of talent is incredible. And that gives us the know-how and experience to help other developers, while also start creating our own games, no? Even if the industry is taught at this moment, I think we are enjoying the level of talent that we have, and the opportunity that this private holding from Saudi is giving us to create games. We should understand that the country has Vision 2030, which aims to diversify the economy, and video games is one of the pillars for this diversification. So our private holding is, let's say, it's somehow supporting this vision, this country vision, but making it through Sandsoft.
Right. So the company is owned by private holding company in
Yes.
Saudi Arabia, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember reading as well about that. There's Savi Group as well. That's from Saudi Arabia. They're doing games as well, and they're kind of part of that, the whole vision as well.
Yes.
You guys?
Savi, which I think they have changed the name recently, but they are part of the PIF investment fund from Saudi Arabia. So that's a public company, not a private one. And it's also part of this Vision 2030 that the government has enabled this Savi company to invest and to create games from the region to the world. So Savi is also part of Saudi Arabia and is one of, let's say, companies in the ecosystem that is trying to foster the ecosystem in the region.
Right. Why they chose Barcelona to open as a second location?
Oh, well,
what was maybe the story behind it? How did the studio, happen to come about?
I think at the very beginning, there was much more the ambition to create something only in Saudi Arabia and to create the capabilities and the talent in Saudi Arabia. At some point, they realized that that's going to take some time because the region is improving fast and is growing fast. But to have let's say, a competitive ecosystem like other parts in Europe, it's going to take some time. So eventually, Sandsoft decided that they wanted to fast track their strategy by opening another hub in Europe. And they were looking at several cities, all of them well-known and with amazing gaming ecosystems, but eventually ended up choosing Barcelona because they found that here the talent that was, let's say, looking forward for this project, that was inspired by the project, by the ambition of the group. And I think that because they founded the first professionals here, then they started to establishing in Barcelona, no? It's true that in Barcelona, the amount of talent the pool of talent is considerable. So it's a place where you can not only find talent, but also to attract talent. And eventually, this talent also helps our studio in Riyadh to produce their games and level up, and also helps the ecosystem there, no? So in Barcelona, we ended up founding this studio, and so far we are very, very happy.
Yeah, I mean, you can never go wrong with Barcelona. That's for sure. What sort of games are you guys focusing on? Is it mostly mobile, PC, console? What?
Yeah, it's mainly mobile. Eventually, if we have a mobile hit that we can port to another platform, that's something we could consider. But at this moment, we are focusing on mobile in the three fronts, no? As a publisher, as a developer, as an investor as well. We think that mobile accounts for 50% of the market. Our team has experience and know-how in mobile, and that's the space where we would like to operate and to launch amazing.
How do you cut through the noise in the mobile space? I mean, there's so much supply nowadays, not only talking about mobile, but in games in general. So is the PC market, so the console market. How do you create a game that cuts through the noise and, that people essentially start playing? I think you mentioned something about the niche that you need to kind of find your niche where you succeed at and be really good at, and that's how people find you. Is that the way to go about that?
Well, if you are starting a company nowadays, I think that having access to talent is going to be key, because it's a talent-based industry. So most probably having people that has already made the learnings and the know-how is going to fast-track your, let's say, success. Then building a culture that can eventually guide your team to succeed and to keep on the right track is also very important. defining, let's say, a winning strategy for the market. No, you need to analyze the market and try to understand, based on your strengths, how are you going to try to compete in that market, and then defining a product strategy where you can create amazing games and learn from those iterations. No, so eventually that, together with, let's say, best-in-class marketing, best-in-class analytics, and tools, tech tools that help you to operate, is the kind of recipe that I would recommend. No, in terms of niche, there are some, let's say, red oceans in the market, but users are still open to innovative and fresh experiences. No, so either you understand where there is a niche opportunity where you could provide a new experience, okay, or you try to disrupt one of the big categories with a new, a fresh idea. No, I would say that because the market is massive, even a niche opportunity eventually ends up being a significant business for a new team. I'm not saying that's what particularly Sandsoft is looking for, but as a recommendation for a team to focus initially on one idea or one category where they could make learnings faster, it's something that would be recommended.
How do you find games to invest or companies to invest in? How do you find games that you'd want to publish? Do you have like a department in the company that's sort of responsible for that? Do people come to you? How does it work?
I think it works on both sides, inbound and outbound. No, so from our side, trying to analyze the market, identify companies that are growing, either on downloads or on revenues. Also, getting our teams to play games and tell us which games they have found that are fun, okay, and that we would like to explore. So from our side, making all the effort to try to identify talented developers that are working on great games, no? And then also to tell the market that we are looking for developers, so that eventually through our PR, through the website, through the different events where we participate, we can also create that noise that then developers also understand that Sandsoft is a publisher in the space and that they can come to us with their games to collaborate together.
So if I'm a team, I don't know, 5 people, if we're a team of 5 people, and let's say we have an idea for a game, or maybe we have a prototype, like at what stage should we approach Sandsoft or maybe any other publishing companies in general in this space? At what stage do publishers typically sign a deal or invest in companies like that?
I would say that depends on the publisher, and each of them have a different way of operating. But most of the times, when the game has some initial KPIs, that's when Sandsoft has some data that can look at and not only pure on playing a prototype, no? So I think playing the prototype and having fun is just like a very good signal and the first step. We could eventually start advising or helping that studio to make sure that the game is evolving positively. But once we have the first KPIs is when we would like to enroll into, let's say, a partnership with them, no? Because those KPIs are eventually telling us that that game has, let's say, good product metrics and also good marketability metrics that we would be eventually able to launch and scale and make a success business for both parts.
And being both an investor and a publisher, are you looking into partnering up with companies where you can be both an investor and a publisher for them? Is it something that you're doing or already or maybe planning on doing in the future?
Yeah, I think that's part of what we are trying to do. No, if we find a company where we can be a publisher and help them as a publisher to grow their game, and then eventually we can also start participating more on as part of the company as a stakeholder, while the game continues to grow and scale, that would be one of the scenarios that we would be looking for, no? To slowly become part of that company while we find success in one of the games we are operating for them. So that would be one of the scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And in that event, you would be both a publisher and an investor in that company. It's true that companies in this moment are having some financial struggles to find investment or to find finance the projects. So we don't want to act purely as an investor, but we also want to participate in building their game, and that makes sense as a publisher.
Makes sense. I think it's also you kind of carving your own niche here as well, right? Because there are investors, there are publishers, but I don't think there's that many companies that offer both. So, you have an opportunity to really, potentially find projects or companies that are interesting and that wouldn't necessarily, sign with someone else. So, you have an edge here, I think.
Yeah, the ambition of Sandsoft is to be a global games company, and that's why the three pillars make sense to us as a publisher, as a developer, as an investor. And that's why we have some teams working on each of those areas. Eventually, if we want to be a global game company, those three areas would be needed.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, backing up our publishing studios with some investment at the right moment, it's one way to also secure the ecosystem that we are creating.
Talking about you personally, so you've been in leadership roles for a long time now, both with Socialpoint, now with Sandsoft. What kind of leader are you? Do you analyze yourself in terms of what kind of leadership style you have? How do you approach leading teams and building teams? Do you have a system that you tend to implement, or does it really depend on the teams that you acquire? Or that you're building, in that moment?
Well, I define myself as let's say, a serving leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that wants to work hands-on with the teams, but that the goal at the end is to help the teams make and take the right decisions, to reach their objectives. So eventually, I see myself as a leader, leading by example, trying to be just one more member of the team, communicating very, let's say, direct, but at the same time, informal way, and creating trust with the teams, and making sure that they feel like they are empowered to lead the projects that we are asking them. Because most of the times they know more than I do. No, I'm more like trying to remove blockers or facilitate or speed up things, or to solve some problems that they might be fighting or finding in the process. But eventually, it's true that each of them knows more on their job than I do. So I try to make sure that each of them have the best tools, the best capabilities, the best conditions to succeed on their role.
I agree. I mean, when you're hiring people for their knowledge, and you expect them to be experts in a field. And you don't want to tell them what to do. You might guide them through the process. You might, need to have some sort of tools in order to integrate them into the team and be able to use their skills and their experience in the best manner. But you need to let them free and make decisions and make mistakes where possible. I agree. How stressful is to be a leader? And how do you handle stress? Do you go for a run? Do you have a cup of tea from here and there? I don't know.
Being a leader is stressful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why a smile always helps. Because some situations are already stressful by itself, no? and at the end, your stakeholders or your shareholders are looking for results, and you also have your team requests, and the market is getting more difficult. So eventually, that's part of the challenge that we are in, no? And even if it's stressful, I think that we need to be conscious about it and to try to analyze yourself and understand what level of stress are you handling at each moment, and look for alternatives to dissipate those, no? So some of the things that work to me, I'm quite a rational person. The first thing is to focus on the right priorities. So try to understand which are the priorities that I need to focus at this moment, and try to dedicate most of the time there, okay? In order to do that, I recommend to surround yourself by a strong team, okay? Because if you have a strong team around you, you will be able to delegate more things.
Sure.
They will require less supervision, so that would eventually allow you to focus more on your core priorities. And by surround yourself with a strong team, it's not only at work. I think it's also at home, no? At the end, we are normal people that we have a job at work, but we also have a role at home, no? So make sure that at home you have a strong partner, that it supports you, and that you can count on them in the difficult moments as well, no? I think that's key, because if you don't have a stable situation at home, it's going to be difficult that you can perform well at work.
For sure.
Or eventually it's going to create more stress on you. So I would strongly recommend to have a strong team at work and at home. Then look for some moments to escape on the stress, no? And obviously some sport, practicing regular exercise would be good. Taking care of your diet as well, and your rest. I think having enough rest is very important. Even when you are very stressful, try to disconnect a little bit before going to bed and trying to sleep enough hours, no? Those, regarding those apps that help you about a little bit of, let's say, meditation or mindfulness, I think it's also good. If you can have some moment dedicated to that. Breathing exercise sometimes helps, okay? And eventually get a couple of days to disconnect as a break, no? Regularly, eventually, when you think that it's required, because you will come back with fresher ideas, with more energy, and overall it will pay back.
What kind of sports do you do?
I like cycling,
Mm-hmm.
especially on the mountain.
Okay.
Here in Barcelona, we have a nice mountain called Collserola, and that's a place where I can exhaust myself as much as I want, no? And there's plenty of kilometers where I can really go cycling and end up exhausted, so that I can come back more relaxed. And it helps me to disconnect, because you are all the time in the middle of the nature,
Mm-hmm.
and you are focusing on the road, on the track, on the trail, and therefore it forces me to disconnect.
Where is it? Is it near Montseny somewhere, or is it?
It's just in Tibidabo mountain.
Oh, okay.
All that mountain, it's called Collserola.
Right.
So it's just behind Barcelona, and you can be there, let's say, in 15 minutes. You are there, and then you can enjoy this little space that we have here.
Fair enough. You're talking about strong teams. So obviously building a strong team at home is, I don't know, sometimes it happens by chance, right? You fall in love, etc. But when you're building a team at work and you're trying to recruit people to surround yourself with people that are knowledgeable, that know what they're doing, they can work cohesively as a team, it's not a stressful environment. Everybody's sort of complimenting each other. That's kind of an ideal environment to be in.
Scenario, yeah.
How do you go about recruiting people that would work well together in tandem and complement each other? How do you anticipate this environment where it's not stressful, where everybody can get along? How do you find those personalities? It's not only just about skills, right? It's about culture and personalities when you're building those teams.
That's not an easy thing to do, and I would say it's more of an art and intuition sometimes than just a skill set. No, I'm not an expert in talent acquisition, but to me it helps a lot talking about that person and trying to understand if the goal of the company and the goal of the individual are aligned, and also if there is some kind of let's say personality characteristics that will match well with the current culture and the current team. No, so we tend to speak several people from the leadership with the candidates in a two-way communication, no, so that they can know us better and they can assess better if we are the right people he or she would like to work with. But at the same time, it also helps us to understand if we would like to work with this person, how much we can learn or how much we can complement each other with this new profile, and eventually if there is chemistry on this relationship, no? So I would say it's not a science. It continues to be an art. But what it's important is to realize if you would like to work with this person or not, and then give it a try.
Sure. Sometimes it's difficult to do when you just meet that person 3-4 times, right? And then eventually you need to make a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully most of the time you can make a right decision by allowing that person to meet enough people in the team, and then
exposing that person to enough people so that both parts can assess. I think it's a good idea. It's true that then also makes the process longer. But I think that depending on which type of profile, that's something that I would advise, no? Because eventually we don't want to make rash decisions. We want to make the right decisions and to onboard people that will have a significant chance to match with the team, no? For example, when we were at Socialpoint, we were inviting all our candidates to visit the office, no matter where they were living. If they were in Australia, we were paying the flight so that they could spend a few days in Barcelona and then the weekend, because we wanted to make sure that if we were moving somebody here, it would not only fit in the skills and in the know-how and in the experience, but also culturally speaking with the team, with the city, and even their family. In case they were moving with the family, they could find a good place here, no? So trying to make sure that you are giving the chances to analyze those, it's important. And that's why at Socialpoint we were inviting people to come, spend time with the team, spend time in the city before making the decision.
Well, that's the best way to go about it. I think a lot of studios were doing that before, and then since COVID, it seems like it has changed. Now, a lot of the studios, even if it's an on-site role or a hybrid role, they conduct most of the interviews online, and then they bring the person over. But I think it's important, especially if it's an on-site position, not a remote role, to have an opportunity for that person to visit the city, see the studio, meet people in person, so that they can able to make an informed decision. Because it's a huge move, right? It's a huge change in your life. You're moving, your entire life to a new city, a new environment. So you need to be.
Yeah, at that moment it was also a sales pitch, because Barcelona was not in the map yet, no?
Right.
So it was difficult to attract somebody that, let's imagine, it was working at Facebook or at Google to move to Barcelona, to a small let's say small, relatively small for them, no, video games company, no, like in that case, you were just offering them like, hey, why don't you come here for a few days on vacations? We pay for it, no? You visited us, you know the team, you know the city, you have the chance to see by yourself, no? And then there was like the whole, that whole visit was prepared. And we were preparing like, okay, we will go and visit this part of the city, and we will have lunch or dinner here. And he or she will meet with these people at the office. We will cover some tests as well, but then we will explain about the company. So it was a whole plan and sales pitch to convince people to come. Maybe now there's less need on that, but there's still the need to make sure that as many as checkbox as possible have been analyzed for the candidate and for the company.
It's a very nice office, Socialpoint office as well. They're not there anymore now. They moved recently, but I went there a couple of times, and I remember they had like a massive games room on the top floor. They have a parrot.
Yeah.
I think there was like a poker room.
Yes.
Something. That's a great office, that.
Yeah, great office. and that was also part of the sales pitch, because we wanted to make sure that when somebody was visiting the office, they would see something that it's kind of cool, no? And at the end, it's like, look, working here is as cool as what you are seeing, no? And people that are part of the company, we like to be cool as well. So now they have moved to a new office, and I think they are also very happy there.
Nice. Where did they move? Is it somewhere in the city center?
They move in the same neighborhood in Poblenou, but near Rasmatas, maybe just, let's say, 10 minutes walking from where they were.
Okay.
Now it's a whole Zynga building.
Okay.
And I think that also the move made sense, because now the whole building is for Zynga. They have moved to a newer officer. In terms of security, it's better. In terms of localization, is kind of similar. And the team has a new home.
Makes sense. Talking about the Barcelona gaming ecosystem, I think we covered it in the beginning, but maybe not as much as I wanted to. What's your involvement in the ecosystem? What sort of initiatives do you personally do, and how you see the whole ecosystem sort of evolving, or has evolved in the last few years? How it's changed, and maybe how different it is?
I would say that the gaming ecosystem in Barcelona has grown significantly during the last 15 years. Okay, and now, as we were commenting before, approximately 60% of the biggest gaming companies have some kind of presence in the city. No, as we were saying, Catalonia and Barcelona represents 50% of the talent in video games in Spain, and also of the business size. And definitely Barcelona has this kind of good mix of local talent, but also capacity to attract European and international talent. Then also in terms of PC and console, there are more and more companies that are operating here and are joining the ecosystem. But when we speak about ecosystem, that goes beyond, no, the pure big gaming names. But as we were saying, it involves, for example, the incubator, which is called Game BCN, that helps young indie studios to level up and to publish games. We have the schools and the universities. We have then some associations, let's say private and public associations, that help the ecosystem to keep growing. No, so in terms of but we still have room to improve. Okay, as an ecosystem, for example, we have analyzed that if we would have a tax deduction, it would help the industry to continue growing significantly. we would also like to become, let's say, video games educational hub, because if the industry is about talent, being also a recognized hub for video games would also help to increase the amount of talent that we would have. And then why not having a big event happening in the city about video games, no? Would also put would also help the best talent to come to the city and experience the city by themselves, no? It's true that we have Mobile World Congress, which is a significant event,
Sure.
but is not recognized as let's say, a video games event, and therefore not all the video games industry is coming for this. So I would say that something like that would also be amazing, no? As far as we can keep attracting talent and developing talent and fostering the different actors of the ecosystem, I think we will still continue to do well. And then on my side, I try to be, let's say, I'm involved and compromised with the social, cultural, and economic life of Barcelona, because this is the city where I live. This is the city where I grow, and therefore I also feel that I have some kind of payback, no, and that I want to contribute into this community, and I try to participate in as many things as I can as part of also my, let's say, contribution, no. In this sense, I collaborate with one of the universities as a teacher. I also mentor some students, young students, when they request it. I also advise some young companies if there's anything I can help there. I collaborate with this incubator, Game BCN. I participate in the industry gatherings that we do, either organized by the own industry or by the institutions. Okay, I collaborate with those institutions to understand which are the problems that we still have, or how we could improve the ecosystem. And overall, I try to be, let's say, accessible and open to help.
I agree that we need like a big event here. I think there's enough people that know Barcelona and recognize Barcelona as one of the industry hubs. And I think when it comes to like attracting people to come to Barcelona for events, it wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, that certainly would be nice. As far as the tax break goes, how would you do that? How would you influence, I don't know, the government to give you a tax break? I don't know, to be able to
it's a tax
open
deduction.
more companies, or
with one of the private institutions in Spain has been working on with a university to analyze how a tax deduction could help to incentivize the industry here. They have examples from UK, as far as I understand, and also the cinema and audiovisual industry in Spain already has this tax deduction.
Okay.
So taking as a reference those two at least, they have been able to demonstrate that having a tax deduction would help to reinvest and to, let's say, not only reinvest part of the capital, but also to increase the team size and therefore the level of employment of the industry, and also the results of the industry here. The business size would grow, no? So we know that the cinema already has this. It's an industry that is not so different from the video games in terms of cultural and entertainment. So this is one of the requests that as an industry we are doing to the government. And those are the conversations that the institution is having with the government to introduce this tax deduction.
Sure. I'm sure it will take some time, but hopefully they're able to do it, you know?
I think that if we are able to convince the government that video games is, let's say, a growing industry in our country, that we have some strengths, but we also need to nurture the ecosystem to facilitate more, and they can see that with some numbers, we should have an argument there. Same as we have seen that the Beckham law has helped to attract talent at the same time, because then people, expats that are moving to Barcelona, they have a tax cut, no? Let's say they have a benefit on their tax when they come to travel to Spain for the very first years, no? So that's proven to be effective, and that's just one more of the incentives that we are trying to boost.
Yeah, Beckham law is a good one. When I was recruiting for companies here in Barcelona, it's something I'd always mention, and it's
something you always put on the table,
yeah,
and it helps, no?
Of course, yeah. Especially when you're moving people from the States.
Yeah.
And they're usually on higher salaries there. When we actually talk about real numbers after tax, etc., and the cost of life in Barcelona and everything,
Yeah, if you can put those numbers, then it's when it starts makes the difference, no? Because the cost of life in Barcelona is, let's say, it's more competitive, let's say, than other European capitals or even than the US. And then when you introduce also this tax rate that benefits people coming from abroad, then it starts making sense for them, no? If you can then show them what's the quality of life, or whether style, way of living here, the food, it definitely helps.
Maybe just to finish this off then, talking about the younger generation in this industry. So, I mean, these past years, especially this year as well, has proven to be quite difficult for young people to enter the industry because of the layoffs, because they have so much more competition now from experienced professionals trying to get new roles. Maybe just from your perspective, if you were just finishing university and starting up in this industry, or wanting to kind of join a games industry, or perhaps start your own gaming studio, what would your advice be? How would you go about it? How would you try and enter the industry? How would you sort of differentiate yourself maybe from the crowd?
That's a fantastic question. And in fact, because I teach at the university, I found I speak with many students that are looking for either internships, or when they finish and they graduate, they look for the first job, no? So I'm exposed to this question frequently. Remember last week I was speaking with a young artist that was asking me how she could do it, no? So this question comes fresh to my mind. First of all, as you have said, most of the gaming companies, when looking for new talent, they are looking for senior and experienced talent, okay? Because what they want is to, get the best talent to have the biggest chances to solve the problems, to hack the system, and normally that happens when you have some experience, no? But unfortunately, when people is coming from university, they don't have this experience, and most of the times they come out as a little bit generalist. Mm-hmm. So they don't have even a specialization or experience in a specialization, no? We are working with the public institution to understand how we can close the gap between university or school to work. And there are some proposals that we are speaking with public institutions, but still not there. My recommendation would be that they need to specialize, and they need to get experience. And one way to do that is by creating their own studios with their friends and start creating games. Nothing prevents them from working on games, working on concepts that will enable them to specialize further and start getting some experience. Also, I would recommend to start networking with the industry. Okay, like start going to gatherings, to events where there's more industry veterans, and try to get some people to mentor you, because they will give you advice, they will put you in contact with some people, they might identify opportunities for you. So try to leverage from the ecosystem and from the industry and from the talent that already exists here. Then participating in, let's say, in all kind of game jams, hackathons, that would also give them this kind of initial experience and specialization capacity, no? Try to work with companies that require some, like some indie studios that can require some support, even if it's temporary, okay? And then speak with the public institutions, because there are some tools that can help them to transition.
Mhm.
And that's also part of what we are working with public institutions. That would be my advice for them, and to keep working on just creating games, because that's part of the experience, part of the know-how that they will be able to put into the table.
I agree. I agree with all the points that you said. I think for me as well, like probably networking would be the most important as well. I went a few months ago, I think now, to an event organized by IO here in Barcelona.
Yes,
They organize these events maybe like once every couple of months.
that's cool. Yeah.
And they have some speakers there, and then they have drinks, reception after, which was super nice. And I met some just young students there who just there to obviously listen and learn and build relationships. So that was so nice to see. And I think, and also just trying to maybe network through LinkedIn as well, and you know, kind of differentiate your profile a little bit. Yeah, connecting with people in the industry, and just being a little bit different, maybe doing things differently to what your peers are doing.
Yeah, I don't see so many of the students that I interact with going beyond their school ecosystem, no? So trying to contact with people, asking for mentorship, asking for feedback about their work, no? Like if you are an artist and you have just drawn a concept on a dragon, why don't you go to the artist of Dragon City and ask them for feedback, no? Like,
Sure. And not everyone is going to respond, but if you message enough people, somebody will respond, right? And will be able to give that to you.
And I think that the industry is quite collaborative. So at least I understand that the new generation is the one that will level up the industry. So I also want to, let's say, collaborate with them and participate with them, because this is the generation that will be taking the lead in a few years. And not only we need to help them to prepare, but they will eventually be the ones that will be leading the industry in a few years.
I agree. Right. It was really nice to talk to you and to meet you. And I appreciate you taking your time. So thank you so much for coming over. Yeah, I really enjoyed learning about your experience. And I hope people that will listen to this will take something from it as well.
Thank you, Thomas. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me to the podcast, and really looking forward to continue speaking with you and to interact with the industry and level up all together.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you.